This video is the Understanding the Fieldwork assignment. Please watch this video prior to attempting the fieldwork assignment. So the first thing you're going to do is click on the course materials homepage and you'll see the assignments folder there. All the material that we are going to be talking about is located in that assignments folder. If you click on the assignments folder, partway down, you'll see the folder for all the materials for the fieldwork paper. This project is due May 3rd and it's worth 20% of your grade. If you go into the fieldwork paper folder, you'll see three important items. The top item is the instructions and the grading rubric in one file for the project. The second item is a permission to observe form. For those of you who are not familiar with this is a form signed, a letter signed by the dean saying that this is a valid assignment. It's for you to print out, write the name of the course on the top, and present to a principal or other administrator and possibly your classroom teacher. It just verifies that this is a valid assignment. You don't need to get it signed or return it to me. If you do have trouble with any of your placements, I know that Yonkers, for example, has been asking professors to write letters. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. The last thing you'll see in this file is the link to submit your fieldwork assignment. So that's only when you've done your paper and completed the project. If you open up the instructions for the assignment, you'll see the file that I'm about to go over. So let's go over the specifics of the assignment. First of all, even though the fieldwork counts for 10 hours, that counts the amount of time you have to take to prepare your paper. So it really means you only have to observe for 6 hours, a minimum of 6 hours. The first thing is to locate a school and a classroom that corresponds to your certification area. So if you're, for example, if you're pursuing an elementary certification, you can observe in a grades 1 to 6 classroom. If you're adolescent, it's 7 to 12. And if you're adolescent, it's also a good idea to match the subject area. If that's impossible, we can be a little lenient on that. It would be good to go outside of the school if you're currently teaching at your school to get a diversity of experience, but under no circumstances may you observe in the classroom that you're teaching or that you're performing as a TA or paraprofessional. And that's because you can't really observe and work with the students at the same time. I should point out before going further that this has to be a separate observation from other classes. You can't double dip, and that's because the state requires this, that you use separate observations for different classes. Mercy is also tracking your fieldwork. So what that means is if you're going to the same school time after time and you're going to apply to student teach, you're probably going to get a word with our student teaching coordinator because the state requires that you have diverse fieldwork experiences. So what does that mean? It means if you've been going to an urban setting, you might want to consider a suburban or a rural setting. If you've been going to a school that's affluent, that's wealthy, you might want to go to a high needs district. So at the end, they're going to be looking at your your fieldwork experiences to make sure that you've observed in a lot of different types of classroom. Now think about this. The reason for this is that you're going to be certified to teach particular grade levels. Let's say you're pursuing elementary certification. Well, you're going to be certified to teach 1 to 6, not in urban districts, not just in suburban districts, but all over. So you don't know where you're going to wind up necessarily, so you want to see a variety of those districts. When you're observing, take detailed notes on what you're seeing. And you're going to be observing not only the lesson, but primarily the types of assessment that you're seeing. For this reason, I suggested you don't conduct your observation until March. You can line it up now and get it ready, secure a placement, but don't go in until March because it won't be until March that you really know anything about assessment. You're looking for all the different ways that teachers teach. And you're going to be looking at periods of instruction. Don't go in when they're just taking a test. Um, you want to talk to your classroom teacher as well. You want to talk about what he or she does for in terms of assessing the students. You're also going to write down details about the context. So how many students were there? What's the school? What's the location? What are things you see in the classroom? So you're going to be taking notes on the context, on the lesson, and also you're also going to be writing down the types of assessment that you see occurring. By the way, these papers will be put through Safe Assign, and that's a plagiarism checking piece of software that we have on Blackboard. If I see that you are using this in another class for the same thing, for fieldwork, then I might have to ask you to rewrite it, or I might even have to assign a 0. So what should the parts of the paper be? First of all, it's going to be 4 to 6 pages, double space, with citations and references, usually from your textbook. Use a running header and follow APA style. If you don't know what a running header is, you should Google it. Be sure you cover the context of the observation. So the date, the number of hours you observed, the grade level, the school should be in there, the teacher's background, etc. Describe the lesson that you observed briefly. This shouldn't be the bulk of the paper. The bulk of the paper should be how assessment was used in the classroom. Some things on which you might wish to comment. In what ways were your experiences similar, different from your prior ideas on assessments? How did the teachers use standards? How did the teacher formatively assess his or her students? And a reflection. A reflection is different than a conclusion. Reflect on what you learned from the experience and what you maybe bring forward into your own classroom. You're going to give at least one reference, probably your textbook. And if you're looking for how to format that reference, it's in the syllabus. So you're going to submit your paper on Blackboard, but you're going to fill out your fieldwork forms on TaskStream. And the instructions for how to do that are in the TaskStream folder. This simply means you're going to go in and you're going to fill out the demographics and some information on the school that you visited. If you look at the grading rubric, and I always suggest that students have the grading rubric by them when they're doing their papers because you can see how it will be scored. You're going to see that the context of the observation is important. Give at least the name of the school, the location, the demographic information of the students, the grade level and the subject observed, and the number of students in the classroom. You need to include the standards or learning objectives or target that the teacher was using fully written out, not just providing a number. If this isn't apparent, you need to talk to the teacher about what standards she's working with. Write a short description, but a clear description of the lesson. When you write the description of the lesson, it's helpful to sit back and see if you can follow the lesson. Or give it to someone else to read. Does it make sense? Can they tell what was going on in the classroom? The bulk of the paper should be the use of assessment, and different types of assessment should be described, not just formative assessment, for example. You could talk to the teacher and say, how often are the students summatively assessed? You could talk about pre-assessment. You could talk about summative-based formative assessment. So really tie this section into your textbook and use citations to support what you're seeing. Reflection that's different from a conclusion should be included. So what did you learn? What surprised you? What might you take forward into your own classroom? These are all things that could be answered in the reflection section. References should be included, and you shouldn't put a reference in that doesn't have a citation in the text and vice versa. You shouldn't have a citation without a reference. Writing mechanics and APA conventions are going to be included, so make sure you proof your papers. There shouldn't be any spelling errors. And finally, yes, there is a part of the rubric that scores whether or not you submitted your 2 fieldwork logs on task stream. This paper may not be revised and resubmitted because of when it occurs in the semester, very late in the semester. So take that into account and plan accordingly. Any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks.